All right, back at it. We are still in this crazy stocks only go up mode. And not only that, we now it's been going on for a few days now, but we also have this crazy GME AMC meme rush coming in. Well, it was, and it's gone, and maybe it'll come back, but crazy times right now. Had this huge move on GameStop for 1.5 days, and we've been selling off ever since. Same thing with AMC. Somebody's got to call Roaring Kitty up, but that's not really something I'm that interested in, to be honest, unless it consolidates and sets up, which could happen with the amount of volume that we've had here. I mean, this is a lot of volume here. This has the potential for some more craziness, but it's kind of an odd situation. But got to keep your eye on that. Again, the SPY, we're now officially into the all-time highs. We're officially back on the all-time highs wave. We've got out of this 525 level here. So it's a bit tricky right now thinking, you're breaking out of all-time highs on one hand, which is technically bullish, but also it's just hard personally to just jump into something long here at these levels, but it just keeps going up. It's tough. It wants to pull you in here. We had this nice action here for 3 days, 510, 513, and 514 in here, and then we came out of this, had this big move. I think it was CPI numbers, some sort of big news, I think, kind of pushed this up, along with a few earnings plays, I believe. Couple names I'm looking at here. Like I had been saying, the Piton, I actually never got any of this short. It was kind of an odd one because as the market was rallying, this was topping out, or the market was continuing its uptrend. This was oddly topping out and now rolling over. So still watching that, but nothing great there. Couple interesting longs though. This NVAX I was watching today. Unfortunately, I didn't pull the trigger on this, but I didn't feel great about it being up so high here without too much of a pullback, but it actually gave us a nice setup in here. If you look in here, it gave us a nice setup, and I was watching this. This is the 10-1. I was watching this in here as it got tight, and then when it, let me see, where was I at? I was watching it in here. And then when it sold off right here around 11 o'clock to 11:30, I thought potentially it was going to roll over along with the SPY. Because if we look here, this 10:30, 11 zone, this 11 to 11:30, we were topping out here, and we were rolling over on the SPY. So I wasn't thrilled about the connection there, and I kind of let this one go in this zone here, and then this thing just gathered itself, popped right back up, and just continued to grind all day. Kind of a tricky, kind of one of those ones that looks really nice after the fact, but a little bit of a tricky name or action, you know, in real time. And if you look here, part of my thesis was, if you look in here on the hourly 10-day, even we can bring it into the 7, this huge green candle we had back on 513, I was working off this level here, this 1330. I was thinking to myself, okay, if this can consolidate and break through that, we can have a big move. And that's exactly what happened. But again, like I've said before, the tighter the time frame you're working on, the more chance that you're going to get shaken out. And that's what happened here in that little zone here. But it did end up doing exactly that. If you look up here, we had this 1330 zone right here. We had the 1330 zone right here. And as you can see, let me take this off for you. We had the 1330 zone as right here, and as you can see, it kind of fought with it a little bit, touched it here, faded, grinded. This was the zone I was just highlighting, and then in here is where I kind of got bumped off, and then we quickly rebounded, tried the 1330 zone again, stuffed back down again, and then finally here at around 130, 140, it finally started to like really take off. So it was a bit of a grinder, but nice action when you kind of zoom out on it. So that was an interesting name. Still one to watch just because of the amount of volume that it's had in it, and it had some interesting news. But at these levels, I don't see as much of an edge. If we consolidate potentially maybe, and then try to kind of have another setup like this underneath, which we kind of are starting here. So this could give us another leg up, but it's a little bit of a iffy one at these levels. This plug, I actually put a trade on this plug. Kind of a unique situation, because when you look at, I think it's some of these, see, well, I guess these have a little action also, but we had some big news on plug, big volume 3 days ago, 203 million, crazy volume. So this was kind of just a straight up, just a stock trade, like a default trade we had. It wasn't great, but it was pretty clean. As you see here, the 30-minute 7-day, we had the big gap. We had the big gap, pretty ugly though, just complete sell-off. But as we started to consolidate in here for 2 days, you can see this 1330 zone really started holding, and that's what I was working off in here, which is unfortunate in some regards, because I was between this and NVAX, on which one I really wanted to put my focus on. And I mean, hindsight's 2020, but I probably should have stuck to my guns with NVAX, but instead I went here and I kind of got a lesson in relative strength, because this was relatively strong to the market and this was weak to neutral. So there's that. But in here, where was it that I was adding in? Or I was in here, in this 333, 334 zone was where I was buying. It was either in here or in here. I think it was in here actually, because I remember this little pop and drop, but then it held. So kind of the same look as NVAX, except less exciting, less of an explosive move. But simple trade where I'm working in this 330 zone with a risk basically low a day, maybe a tad higher. And I'm looking for this curl here, probably a morning gap tomorrow. And, you know, scale out and maybe hold 25% of the position for a potential, you know, a potential big spike with gains locked in. So I like that. We'll go through a few of these names that I've been mentioning. This SMMT, I'm still watching this. We nailed this one in here. This was an earnings winner with a nice big picture, as I've been talking about here, with this huge volume back in 12/1/22. We're right at these levels, 428. 428, we had this zone right here, which was a beautiful big spike on earnings. Then it had this ugly candle, but then it gathered and had a massive move here, or a very nice move here. The only thing which I've said in previous videos, the volume on this is not ideal. So this isn't one you go huge on, but I do like this here. And it's starting to get interesting. I mean, there's two ways you could look at this. You could look at this as the zone to now add in and look for that run up. This is more of a little bit longer term hold, maybe a 1 to 5 day, maybe 1 to 10 day trade. So there's this approach where we start scaling in now and we look for this next run up through these highs. Or this is more of the opportunity or the strategy that I'm leaning towards, is I'm going to look for this to give us a move up and then maybe consolidate in this high 4, low 5 zone. And if we can really get something like we had in here back on 5/6, where it really got tight and we had this explosive move which was a little bit closer to the previous highs, that's more so what I'm looking for. So maybe a pop, consolidate just like this, and then we get this move through these highs, which then could potentially lead to some fireworks, because as I've said, this big picture looks interesting, and we could potentially go 6 and maybe blow off even to 8. So it's all, this one really is going to come down to the volume. If we can get something like in here like we had, we got to get that to really get this thing going. So still a good one. I got to keep showing you Zim. I mean, this thing has just been an absolute beast. This is the one, and this kind of reminds me of SMMT. So if you look at the weekly 1 year on SMMT, you know, we're kind of, let me see. The weekly 1 year on Zim kind of had an interesting look. And yeah, I mean, some similarities. I guess not huge similarities there, but thought it was a little closer. But regardless, Zim was an absolute monster. And this was just a beauty of a big picture. Kind of gave us that nice kind of curl, volume, spike, volume, curl, and then break past those previous highs. And this one had decent volume, but again, not like monster volume. There, what else did we have? This LAZR, I'm starting to zone in on. Had this big volume here, 5/8. Haven't really done much since. This is kind of the same situation as SMMT, where just like SMMT, if you look at the hourly 14, we're kind of down. We've had this down move, and we have this tight range now where we could potentially bottom, pop, consolidate, and really explode. And this LAZR is kind of in the same boat. We had the nice move here on some volume. This one, I believe, let me see. This one has much better volume, 61 million, and I think it's heavily shorted. I'm not sure. Actually, let me take a look at this too. Also, beautiful moving averages, as I always talk about the squeezers. So this actually looks really good. I hadn't looked at the moving averages. So, like I was saying, similar to SMMT, where we've had a big move, and now we've kind of slid down, and now we're in a low area. We've come off some highs. I'm not going to say it's the lows, but it's low, consolidating. This is kind of a crappy price, though. I really don't love anything in a dollar neighborhood, but I've seen this one over the years, so I kind of feel a little more confident. As I was saying, though, this could be one of those plays where you can either, like I said, you can start in here with a tight risk reward, with a tight risk, and or you can wait for a pop, consolidation, and then the rip, like I just said about SMMT, when we get a little bit closer to these highs. So that's kind of where I'm at on this one. I'm giving it the same thing with SMMT. I'm not looking to get in here. I'm actually going to be a little bit more patient and wait till it shows me some strength. I just feel like right now you got to be hitting these names that are relatively strong and that are near these highs, near their whatever their key levels are. We got to be getting in and around those with good risk. So that's an interesting one. We looked at plug, we looked at NVAX. I mean, there's a lot of activity, but it's the same old story, though. You got to have patience. You got to see the trade. You got to let it set up on whatever it is that your process and your system is. And things like this GME and these AMCs and all this stuff, it comes and it goes. You just got to keep executing your strategy, just emotionless. So that's what we're doing. The wolf, been talking about the wolf and the miners. So this had earnings. This is a little bit of a puzzler because this had earnings gap down. So I kind of just, I was hoping it had good earnings. It had, I mean, I don't really care necessarily what the earnings were. I was just hoping it had a positive, response. Unfortunately, it didn't. Coin, also kind of a indicator for that. But the interesting thing is I had a basket of miner names, even though Wolf was my top watch for that basket. But when this, and look at this weekly on Wolf, it's still not out of the, it's still, we're not done with this, but something, we need, I mean, these crypto names they can kind of get funky quick. So I wouldn't be surprised if this reclaimed this area and then we did what I thought. But I'm not going to make a move on it now with that gap down. But what's interesting is when we run through a few of these miners, this IREN, which I had been talking about for probably 3 weeks, way back, this is an Australian, I believe, where the others are all American. So Hut, and I'm sure there's more, but these are just the few I had. There's Hut. There's Cypher. There's Wolf. They all kind of have a similar look. And then you have this IREN, which had earnings either yesterday or today. Had this beautiful green candle. And I was watching this today, kind of sitting on the sidelines thinking maybe I should jump in this. And I'm just kind of confused with the others. I mean, I guess Hut had a decent, green day gap up there. So I'm looking for a little kind of confluence in this miners sector, but this IREN is interesting now. It's been interesting, but now it's really starting to pull me in. And now, again, like I say, squeezers. So this one really had it going on today. Kind of earnings, moving average squeezer, had the big volume, so can't ignore this. This is definitely on watch. I was watching it today for a potential trade to maybe look for a swing for a day or two on this and try to kind of ride up. I mean, it kind of did that today, but it just went too much too fast for me. So if this can come back and consolidate maybe 520s, 540 zone, and these moving averages keep doing what they're doing and like curling here, if we come back into this 540, hold this zone in here, this could get going, and then within that time frame, potentially maybe Bitcoin and all these coin names get going. So interesting basket there in the miners. IREN's best looking one, but still something there. Couple others. What else do I have for you? Let's run through a few of these. This EV sector I keep talking about, I still can't figure this out. So we got Tesla. Oh, and also, like I said, Nvidia. Remember I said I think this is going to 1,000? Well, we're back on that, but this Tesla is looking very interesting. Another moving average squeezer. We're having a decent amount of these moving average squeezers because what happens is when the market has kind of a sell-off that it had back here like 2 months ago, all these names, which if you go back in my old videos, a lot of these names are coming off their bottom zones and they're kind of rounding out in these moving averages. I think this too, same thing with LAZR. Like a lot of these names had kind of faded off. Same thing with the ZIM, if you remember. The moving averages probably don't look as clean now, but because it's just gone up so much. But this was another one, if you remember, it kind of curled, popped, held, and then just ran. So, and like I said before, the moving averages, it's not a be-all end-all thing, but it's just a little rest. It's a piece of the pie. So this Tesla's looking very interesting. It's kind of in a judgment zone because when it squeezes, when the moving average squeezes, it can also squeeze to the downside too. You can't just assume it's a guaranteed long. So this Tesla could go either way. It's always kind of up in the air with Tesla. But you've noticed we've seen a lot of these smaller names, smaller EV names have similar moves. We've had the couple Green Day run, pullback, this RIVN. So EV and then lithium. I like this Alt M, but it's just it's not it's kind of get that barcode. It's got that barcode vibe where it's just tight and it's not giving me what I want. But I like this one. This is kind of all in the same basket. We got solar. We talked about RUN in back. I think in here. No, I think it was in here. This one I kind of regretted not taking a shot at. You know, you get this nice box here on the 50-day, and it just provides a really good risk reward opportunity here. And we had the nice little run up. It hasn't really got going. I thought maybe off the back of these two big volume days we'd kind of see something. We probably will, but just not the cleanest mover. Similar to this Chewy, which I always just kind of check in on. We had this beautiful, you know, 425 to 508, just bounce, hold, bounce, hold. And then we had this interesting tight 3-day action, weird big red candle. But when you drill in here on the hourly 14, and on this one, I'm going to take the extended hours off. If you drill in here, now it's basically the exact same thing as that daily was, except it's a little more, you can kind of dial it in a little more. And if you look in here, this is a little bit wider of a bounce range that I would prefer, but it did have this beautiful kind of flag out in here, and then the next day it just gapped and ripped. So that was, and this is again, I bet this is going to be a moving average curler. I can kind of just tell from the look of the chart, but yeah, another moving average curler, and you can see right in there in that gap zone, it was right in there. So just what I wanted to drop in there. I don't necessarily see too much opportunity in terms of a day trade right now on that, but that's an interesting one. What else do we have? Let's check in on the CGC. I actually haven't watched this for a few days. Check in on these names. I'm kind of just letting these brew for a little bit. See if maybe people will just kind of forget about it. Maybe with the AMC GME thing, the cannabis sector will kind of go quiet for a little bit, and I think that's what we need. We need, like, because we have all this volume, we got all kinds of people chasing and you know, doing all kinds of emotional trading, because this sector can kind of get that type of energy. So if this was to kind of roll over back into this 6 to 8 zone, we could really start to look for a big trade, because this one's got some potential. Whenever you get this kind of volume, and then you get a, you know, kind of a hectic sector, fireworks. So what's that? SPWR. The thing is, right now, that's not the one I wanted to look at. I want to look at that solar one, yeah. The thing is, right now, I want to say about this. What was it? What was the one I was just on? The SunPower. Is this? I think this is. I think this is a meme thing. Yeah, this is, yeah. Yeah, the thing is with this meme crap, it's like there's good opportunity, but I just yeah, it's so random, and they just go like short. I don't even, yeah. So let's just move on. Um, MNMD also kind of to add to that cannabis thesis there. This is again a psychedelic mushroom name, and I said this back in the past. This CYBN is kind of a chip off that. So also keeping a watch on that. But this MNMD really kind of is starting to put together a look. I don't love it because it's kind of floating on this island, this kind of gap. So it kind of goes. This kind of goes with the theory of if the cannabis CGC ACB type names, if they roll over like I just said back into this 8 to 6 area. And then the same thing with this MNMD, it kind of has that same look, that like edge of the cliff. If we come in here, kind of fill the gap. This one doesn't have necessarily a gap, but just kind of that look. Then that could be the beginning of that next big move. We start to consolidate, we start to, accumulate the buying, and then just one day we'll just have another one of these where it's just a nice gap, rocket type action. This one doesn't get a ton of volume, but the cannabis ones sure do. So a couple names there. We'll keep it moving.